to the Point of Impact podcast with Rick McDaniel. Thanks for joining us today. Get ready to be inspired and motivated to live a high-impact life. Now, here's Rick.
Welcome to Season 7 of the Point of Impact podcast. I'm Rick McDaniel, back from our summer break to kick off a new season. Very excited about it. What a summer it was. Wow, stuff happened, stuff didn't happen. It's, it was a lot. And over the course of the weeks to come, I'll share some of that. Today, I will start sharing some of that because today's episode is going to be about the experience I had over the summer while I was traveling. But as far as, doing video podcast or vidcast and all that stuff and some of the stuff with the website and then just other things that have happened, a new book and all that stuff. There's a lot to unpack and a lot to talk about, but it doesn't all have to be done today. And I would just say that so much is in process that I wish that the summer had brought conclusion to a number of these things. That was certainly my goal. That was what I was after. It's just funny how sometimes, as they say, we make our plans, God laughs. So I had some plans, quite a few, and didn't go the way I thought they would go, and some things that I was certain were going to happen did not, in fact, happen. That doesn't mean that good things didn't happen, by the way. I don't want you to think, poor Rick, he had such a terrible summer, because that would be far, far from the truth. I wouldn't even want to use a word like terrible. I maybe surprising. Maybe it's some things surprise don't go as you think they will go, but that doesn't mean they won't happen. It just means they didn't happen within my prescribed time frame, which was between the end of season 6 and the beginning of season 7. All this stuff was supposed to happen. So there's more to come on all that for sure. And we'll be talking all about it in the weeks to come for sure. But one thing I do want to say, that the book that I have written a chapter for, Inspirational Leadership, that I mentioned back toward the end of last season, is going to be coming out a little delayed, but it will be coming out not long from now, October 15th. So, just about a month or so away. And we'll talk more about that too as we get a little bit closer. And we will have for sure updates for you on stuff like, are we going to do video? Are we going to do video? When will the updated? And man, it looks great. I've seen versions of it. It's a real step up, which is what I love for the website. I think you'll really like it a lot. It's very, it's very helpful, informative, interactive, all those sorts of things. So it's all coming, friends. It's coming, just not quite as fast. And then I'll tell you some other things that happened to me during our time apart during that break, and we'll see how much I tell you. There's a lot that could be told. We'll see how much ends up being told. But one thing that happened is that went out to Lake Tahoe to celebrate my son's birthday, and while I was out there, I just had an opportunity to take a visit to Squaw Valley, what used to be called Squaw Valley, now called Olympic Valley. And man, that was an experience of interviewing people, of seeing things, of being on site, and it just led to really some fascinating stories. I mean, it is an incredible story. And under the didn't happen would be something involving this story that I thought was going to happen, but it didn't. But maybe it didn't yet. Maybe it still will happen sometime in the future. But for now, I'd like to share that story with you for really this purpose for our podcast, for the Point of Impact podcast, and that is to talk about success. I want to begin this season talking about the number one theme that I've talked about in the previous 6 seasons. Now, I've touched a lot of stuff. I mean, a lot, over 200 episodes. But the theme that is the most popular and I have spoken about most often is success. And today, it's not going to be any different. I'm going to start this season, and next week I'm going to talk about it as well. But today, the one thing no one ever tells you about success. The one thing no one ever tells you about success. That's what I want to talk to you about today, and we'll keep talking about success for a while. We will cover many, many other topics in this season, trust me. But there is one that has been the one I've spoken about the most, and I don't think it's by accident. That is one that is very popular and folks want to know more about. But in order to tell you what that one thing is, I have to tell you this story. So here goes. The 8th Winter Olympics were held February 18th through the 28th, 1960, so 65 years ago, in Squaw Valley, now called Olympic Valley. And it is quite close to Lake Tahoe. Lake Tahoe is part in California, part in Nevada. The California side is the side that you'll find Olympic Valley on. And so it is just a place that really is very fascinating to go and visit and to kind of understand what happened there. And then what is this big lesson that we can take away from it? So here goes. Just picture this now. A town that has no mayor, that has a ski resort with one chairlift, 2 rope tows, and a 50-room lodge. And that town hosted the Winter Olympics. It is an incredible, inspirational success story. It all starts back in 1939. A guy named Wayne Polson buys land in the Sierra Valley of California from the Southern Pacific Railroad. He then meets a guy named Alexander Cushing, who is a New York City lawyer and businessman, while Cushing's on a ski trip there in 1945. And the two of them form a partnership. Now, that partnership dissolved prior to the opening of the resort. Cushing remained with the company and served as the chairman for the next 5 decades. That is a whole nother story we can't even get into today. How it is that the guy that originally bought the land ends up not controlling very much of the land, and the other guy takes over. Wild stuff. November 24th, 1949, the Squaw Valley Ski Resort opens. And again, it's a triumph for Cushing. It's a painful loss to Polson, who was forced out of the company that he helped start before it even opened. Cushing is reading the paper one day, San Francisco Chronicle, and he reads that Reno, Nevada, and Anchorage, Alaska are submitting bids to hold the 1960 Winter Olympics, and he thinks it would be great publicity for his new resort to land the Olympics, so he decides to submit a bid. Now, when he first called the paper, they laughed at him. Literally, it's a story. They laughed at him. The sports reporters, like, what? You got this little dinky resort it's barely been open, and you think you're going to host the Winter Olympics? It's absolutely the most nutty, crazy, off the wall story. And why would you think you could do that? But check this out. 11 days later, he's in New York City addressing the U.S. Olympic Committee. 11 days later. The Olympic Committee was impressed with the fact that the annual snowfall there is 450 inches. That there were skiing areas that were some of the steepest terrain in all of America. And frankly, they liked the challenge of the resort's steep chutes and the granite cliffs that, listen, had never been successfully shushed. I mean, that's how new this place was. It's not like they couldn't be. In fact, it became quite a popular place for freestyle skiing. But again, back then, so amazingly, they chose Squaw Valley. They chose Squaw Valley over Reno, which, by the way, Reno is not that far from Squaw Valley. It's probably not that much more than an hour's drive. Hour and 15 maybe. And then Anchorage. Upon hearing the news, the International Olympic Committee president, who happened to be an American at the time, Avery Brundage, told Cushing the United States Olympic Committee's taken leave of their senses. And one of the other International Olympic Committee members, John J. Garland, said, I think you're on a wild goose chase because Innsbruck, Austria has the 1960 bid locked up. Ain't happening. Cushing launches this powerful campaign, lobbies support from all over the world, including this brilliant idea to go after South American delegates because they don't really care about the Winter Olympics. They are participants in the Summer Olympics. And so what do they care? But they had a vote. So Cushing certainly cared because he could get their votes. So you have this kind of like political intrigue that's a part of this as well. I mean, it is a story for the ages, I'm telling you. Cushing ends up creating this 3,000-pound model of the Squaw Valley Resort, as it would be if the Olympics were there, certainly as it is now. It's so big it can't even be displayed at the International Olympic Committee headquarters, which is in Lausanne, Switzerland. So it has to be displayed at the U.S. Embassy. And Cushing brings groups of delegates like on a 15-minute walk from the Olympic headquarters to the embassy. Now, whether it was this, whether that was just showing him the model of what it could be, whether it was his campaign strategy going after South American delegates, or whether it was just an incredible presentation and his communication skills, it was very, very effective. So that in the first round of voting, Garmisch-Partenkirchen, which is in Germany, I've actually been there, and St. Moritz in Switzerland were eliminated. So that it only left Innsbruck, Austria, and Squaw Valley. But again, Innsbruck is heavily favored. But remarkably, June 7th, 1955, the final vote was 32-30 for Squaw Valley. With those South American votes, Cushing's bid included the line, the Olympics belong to the world, not just one continent. Because, the other three bids were all from Europe. Squaw Valley was the first Winter Olympic Games in the Western United States. Cushing then had 5 years to turn this largely undeveloped site into a fully accessible and functioning town. Roads, bridges, administrative buildings, restaurants, hotels, all had to be built. An electric grid, a sewage system had to be installed, and a water treatment plant. Quite an undertaking. Cushing got financial support from California government, state government, U.S. Olympic Committee, and then finally the government, U.S. government, federal government, through a congressional resolution signed by President Eisenhower, money came in. But he still had to raise private funding to develop the site, $80 million. Now, whatever you think about $80 million, just remember 1960. Just let that sink into what we're really talking about. And so, sure enough, those games were held, as I said, in February 1960. Vice President Richard Nixon declared the games officially open. Heavy snowstorm that had been going on broke, and the sky cleared. And the next 10 days were perfect. Sunny skies and intense competition. Amazing story. Gets better. Cushing persuades Walt Disney, that Walt Disney, who had just opened Disneyland 5 years earlier, to be the head of pageantry. And he, frankly, put a stamp on the Olympics and how they're presented in opening and closing ceremonies. That's changed the Olympics. He created this spectacular opening ceremony. It was the first one to be televised. 30,000 balloons, 2,645 voices, 1,285 instruments, 2,000 pigeons were released, fireworks. I mean, it was a show. 65 years ago, Olympics had never seen anything like it. He also oversaw the creation of the Tower of Nations, which is this huge metal structures topped by the Olympic rings. And in front of the structure was situated the Olympic cauldron, which would burn throughout the 11 days of the Olympics. And that's where all the medal ceremonies took place. And by the way, that structure is still there. In fact, it's right as you turn off, say, the main road to go. It's really something to see. The Olympic Lodge housed all 750 athletes. It's the first and only time that athletes from every country lived and dined together in the same facility. And then get this, at night, This is just so wild. Disney brought in all of his celebrity buddies, Bing Crosby, Marlene Dietrich, Jack Benny, and the list goes on, and they entertain the athletes at night. It's just an amazing story, an absolutely amazing story. And then you've got just some other just really, really, really wild stories of things that happen there in terms of sort of like the first games to ever be nationally televised. Biathlon and women's speed skating. Metal skis were introduced for the first time in skiing. Computers were used to tabulate results for the first time. The glass-walled IBM processor drew almost as many observers as the competitions. People had never seen such a thing before. So it's wild. And then just one other thing is that we all hear, the Miracle on Ice, U.S. beats Russia in 1980. Well, guess what? That's the second miracle. The first miracle was the U.S. beat Russia in 1960. And then they went on to beat Czechoslovakia for the Olympic gold medal. And the story of how that happened is absolutely wild. Wild. First of all, our Olympic team, U.S. Olympic team, lost to 3 college teams leading up to the Olympics. To say that they were not favorites would be an understatement. Canada, Russia, or USSR, and Czechoslovakia were the favorites. So we beat Canada, and then we beat Russia. So now we have to play Czechoslovakia. Now, we'd already beaten them 7-5 in the round play leading up to the finals, but we had to play them again and beat them again. And so the gold medal game was the next morning after having just beaten the Russians the night before. 8 in the morning. The players were exhausted. And after the second period, the U.S. was losing by a goal. And then one of the most wild Olympic stories of all, this guy, Nikolai, they called him Saligubov, who was the captain of the Russians, the USSR team, came into the U.S. locker room in the intermission between the second and third periods. He couldn't speak English, so he used pantomime. And basically what he communicated to them was this: you're at 6,000 feet. So that's high altitude. You need a boost of oxygen to give you energy. And so he shows them an oxygen tank and shows them to take a breath. And all of the players started taking hits of oxygen from the oxygen tank. Their blood gets oxygenated, right? I mean, that's what happens. And they get this boost of energy. They go out in the final period. They score 6 straight goals. And win the gold medal. They're called the Team of Destiny. Wild. Largest gathering to see a winter sports program in America. Just an amazing, remarkable story that should be a fantastic Disney movie, in my opinion. And that might have been one of those things I was working on that didn't work out, or at least hasn't worked out so far. But it's an amazing story. An absolutely amazing story. And again, I had a chance to go and visit it and, see what it's like today. It's now called Palisades Tahoe. And for the last 20 years, it's been like a premier ski destination. 270 trails, 72 lifts, 110 passenger tram. I went up on it all by myself. I mean, there was no one else there. All the snowfall. And extremely influential in the free skiing movement. I mean, there's all these movies that have been done from there, just like guys that are like famous guys that free skiing pioneers, some of whom have passed away, died free skiing, not necessarily there, but in other places. And by the way, people who have skied there have gone on to win medals in the Olympics. And over the last 8 years, they've hosted 3 World Cup skiing events, been a place where U.S. Ski Association training takes place. So Palisades Tahoe, if you want to go skiing, it's one of the best places anywhere in America to go. But But in terms of Olympic sporting, other than skiing, not so much. Some of the original buildings remain, like the unique California and Nevada Welcome Centers, visited them. The dining hall, went in there, still has the Olympic rings in it, but it's not used as a dining hall. It's actually like the headquarters for the offices of Palisades Tahoe, the Olympic Lodge, and the very unique and special chapel, all there. But the Olympic Village, the Blythe Arena, where that hockey, all those famous hockey games took place, the ski jump and other buildings are gone. The arena and ski jump have been absent for 40 years. You can actually see, you can look up and you can see like the very beginning of the ski jump, like it's still there, like the base of it, if you would, but not the part that goes down that they ski and jump off of. The arena, that's a wild story. It collapsed, and there's like rumors and stories about, how that happened, why that happened. Some people say it was on purpose. Others say it was just accidental, just a bad idea of insulating, and then the snow didn't fall off or run off the peaks of the roof, and too much weight, and it collapsed. And others say there's even rumors that they drove up heavy equipment on it to purposely make the roof collapse. Why would you do that? And then instead of rebuilding, they just demolished it. It's a parking lot. It's just wow. So after the impressive success of the games, there's not continued success. And then in the 80s, there's this major controversy involving Cushing, who's the same guy that muscled out the Paulson guy earlier. And he goes and clears land without approval. Then there's an avalanche. 7 people die. 7 people die. And it's really a tragic story because they die hiding out in a building that they think is going to be safe. And that ends up being their tomb when they thought that was the place to go, including the guy who ran the whole thing, who knew it was coming. Incredible story. Many years pass, no international events, no training initiatives, lack of venues, eliminate future winter sports success. And the Olympic impact, the incredible success, never the same. Now, just juxtapose this to Lake Placid, okay, on the eastern side of the country where I am. I've been there as well. So small town just like Squaw Valley, but here's the difference. They host the original Winter Games in America, 1932, but they continue to have the facilities, to upkeep the facilities, to develop the facilities, and 48 years later, they host the Olympic Games again. And they still regularly host international competitions, bobsled and hockey and skiing and training events. It's not nearly the skiing resort that, say, Palisades Tahoe is now today and originally Squaw Valley, but not the same success at all, not even close. I mean, Lake Placid is, again, 2 Olympics and still a place that people go to for Olympic events and training. Squaw Valley, Olympic Valley now, no, it's not happening. So, what is the one thing no one ever tells you about success? As hard as it is to reach success, it's even harder to stay successful. I'd go so far as to say it's actually harder to stay successful than to initially have success. It takes so much effort just to have success. But once you reach it, there's the possibility it can stop. It can end. So all that effort, like getting there in reaching it, and that's why people talk about success as a journey, because if you think it's a stop that you've reached, then, and that's it, then that's how you don't stay successful. You have to see it as a journey that involves multiple stops along the way. To sustain success, you have to stay grounded regardless of your achievements. You can't allow success to reorder your life. Just because you've had some success doesn't mean your life is fundamentally changed. And this happens over and over again. People just totally change. And does success change your life? Yes, but does it fundamentally change your life? No. Listen, if you're not careful, you taste some success, whether it's in your career, whether it's in your family, whether it's in your character, you overcome addictions or bad habits, or maybe it's your health, or whatever area of your life it is, then you can start to think like, oh man, I'm above failure. I don't lose anymore. I'm a winner now. I've made it. Look, the changes I've made in my character. Look at how much healthier I am now. Look at the success I've had in my career. Here's one thing I can tell you from personal experience, having been a founder and a trailblazer. With success comes increased attention and scrutiny, and people will try to copy what you've done, mimic your approach, or just outright steal your idea. I started the first contemporary style church in Central Virginia, and over a period of years, watched it just be copied, again, mimicked, copied, stolen ideas from over and over and over and over again. It gets more challenging to be successful when there's greater competition. So only by continuing to innovate can you stay successful. But you have to understand that success brings attention, and that attention will bring copycats. It will bring people who will mimic what you do or just flat out steal your ideas and act like they're their own. As a public speaker and someone was on whose messages were on places like, obviously the internet, radio, things like that, people just steal my message. I'll never forget when someone came in and said, hey, I heard your message. I went to this other church when I was traveling. I heard the exact same message. I'm like, yeah. Welcome to what people will do. I mean, listen, there's a reason they call it golden handcuffs. When you're successful, the expectations go up. You can't assume that past success means future success. Just like the investment people say, past success or past results are not an indicator of future results. We're not saying that just because we got 14% return last year that we're guaranteeing 14% this year. It's just a mistake to believe that somehow, success it's never ending. That's not how it works. You've got to keep doing the things that you did that got you there. But then you're going to have to do new things. You're going to have to innovate. You're going to have to be more creative. You're going to have to find ways to stay on top. It's hard to get on top, but I think even harder to stay on top, which is why whenever you see anyone do things multiple, like multiple championships, or multiple years of just continued increase, you're looking at something really special. And I would just say that you got to remember this, without the favor and blessing of God, you wouldn't have even had success. I mean, you can't measure success without the God factor. So you have to be humble enough to say God's role in any success I've had is enormous, So giving God credit, thanks, having gratitude for it, that's a good way to keep successful. Don't ever start to get into some prideful place where you think you're the reason why and you've done it all, when there's been so many people that have helped you along the way, and certainly God's favor and blessing as well. I mean, again, really knowing that success is more a journey, than a destination. That's what will keep you on the right path. It is great to taste success and to succeed in whatever area of life we're talking about. But it is so important to just stay on the right path, just stay on the right road and keep moving forward so you can keep experiencing success, so that success really is a never-ending reality in your life. Well, I hope that story is one that's fascinating to you, but I hope you can take it, not just say, wow, neat story, but apply it to your life. Great to be back. Season 7. We'll see you next week.
You've been listening to the Point of Impact podcast with Rick McDaniel. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to you joining us for our next episode.